The Eternaut just ended on a crazy cliffhanger that introduced time travel and this weird hand alien thing.
Oh, my other hand isn't strong enough. You take my little hand. No.
So if you're a little confused, this is the perfect video for you because we're gonna dive into the Eternaut. With that being said, don't forget to grab your bug spray, hit the subscribe button, and let's just dive into it. I think we should start with the first episode, which is the onset of the invasion. The opening salvo wasn't a traditional attack. It started with an EMP that knocked out all electrical devices, except for mechanical and analog devices. It then followed up with an airborne contagion that kills on contact. But it's not your typical airborne pathogen. In the very first scene of the series, we're introduced to Juan's daughter, Carla, and her friends, who might have been the first people to be affected by the aliens after they see the blue lights in the sky, which is followed by the EMP that knocks out all the electronics. This is where I think Juan's daughter may have gotten in contact with the hand alien, which is how I think she got mind controlled in the first place, but we'll break all that down later in the video. What I think is the most interesting thing about the snow is it's only lethal while it's in the air. Once it settles, whether it's underground, clothing, or on cars, it becomes inert. But if it touches bare skin, the result is instant death. I believe whatever the agent is that's inside of the snow activates on impact with organic matter. You can see how the snow changes color when it lands. I think once the color changes, that's when it's no longer lethal. The aliens may have a machine that can control the weather, most likely coming from the UFOs that were in the sky that looked like shooting stars, because once we no longer saw those things in the sky, the snow stopped falling. I will say though, even though it stopped snowing, I still would have kept my mask on me because you never know when the snow could have started falling again. The snow alone probably wiped out most of the human population, but that was just phase 1 of the invasion. If you somehow manage to survive the poison snow, you're in for an even worse attack, and that is a giant insect invasion. When the insects first appeared, they were unexpected because the snow alone was a dangerous thing, but you throw this in the mix and it's almost as though the humans have no chance. But these insects were the perfect follow-up to the snow because of the type of insects that they were. The snow, which killed people instantly, also created freezing conditions, and the only way to really survive was to hide inside and not go outside to touch the snow. And a lot of people were starting to hold up, whether it's in their house, supermarkets, or the mall, which is why I think the type of insect that was chosen, the beetle, because beetles with their ability to dig through establishments and their tough exoskeletons are among the few types of insects that can withstand the cold. But these aren't just ordinary beetles. These things are massive bioengineered creatures, and they possess features no other beetle has, and that's the ability to spin silk like spiders to capture their prey. I do want to mention though that I think these beetle bugs are blind. They follow by sound and not by vision, because if you remember, when Juan and Ravelli ran into the beetle on the street, it looked right at them, but it couldn't see them and it did not follow. But anytime someone makes a loud noise, the beetles come scattering and they follow, unless they don't make a move unless commanded, because it was mentioned in the show that someone has to be controlling them, and we do see the hand alien at the end looking like it's the one that's in charge. What I think the bugs are used for is to take out the remaining humans that survived the initial snow. These creatures aren't just running around randomly attacking, they're strategic. They barricade themselves in downtown Buenos Aires, they build constructs to climb up and scale buildings, they adapt to their environment. Also, if you notice that once the bugs captured a human, it didn't instantly kill them. Instead, it wrapped them up in their spider-like silk and it dragged them to their underground nests. I don't think it took them to the underground nest to eat them. I think that's how they're getting the humans that end up being mind controlled, which is phase 3 of the invasion. By this point, we're seeing the full scope of the alien strategy. Humans who were captured by the bugs are now emotionless robotic killers whose sole purpose are to follow orders and eliminate other humans. Some of them, like Juan's daughter Clara, are operating on a different level. Let's go back to that opening scene again. Juan's daughter and her friends saw the lights in the sky. It was the first sign of the invasion. Clara being the first human to actually survive the initial onslaught of the aliens, the hand alien may have interacted with her and then sent her to infiltrate. I think the hand knows that Clara is Juan's daughter. That's why she was chosen in the first place. Because we saw in the episode when she finally found her parents, at the start of that episode, we see her walking on her own and it looks like she broke away from a bigger group, a group of people that was already hinted at that worked for the aliens. And remember when Fravelli mentioned that she took his mask and coat from the boat and Clara claimed that she did not remember any of it at all? To me, that shows her mind was already compromised. From the moment we see her and she says her head is hurting, that's a sign that the alien is already in her mind. It's also the same thing that happened to Lucas. Lucas disappears while he was looking for his favorite brand of alcohol.
You lose it, you never win. Oh,
boy!
He doesn't appear again until after the mind-controlled shooters show up and shoot up the mall. It looked like they were looking for someone while they were doing that, because when they opened the trash can and they saw those people, they could have killed those kids, but they left them. Maybe they're looking for Juan, which ties us back into time travel again. When Lucas finally shows up, he says he doesn't remember anything about last night, kind of how like Clara says she doesn't remember things. I think all of it was a coordinated attack as the aliens are trying to find the human resistance as well as locate Juan. Lucas not remembering that he walked miles before he ran into the army or anything from the night before is awfully suspicious. I think he was taken, brainwashed, and then sent back as a pawn. That could also be why he volunteered them on the mission to establish the radio signal. Lucas essentially lured the resistance into a trap. That tower is exactly where the human collaborators ambushed him. I think that makes sense because the Beatles did not follow the train once it bust through the downtown barricades. It was actually the humans who ambushed them while they were on the tower. They knew exactly where to catch them, even as far as surrounding them in the plane, as well as in the building where they set up the radio communication. Speaking of the plane, I don't think Inga's dead because we never see her die, but we'll get into that just a little later. It's after Lucas stabs Omar and he goes into his monologue before he kills himself that it showed us that he was mind controlled, and instead of betraying his friends any further, he ended up jumping off the building to kill himself. But to me, the biggest twist of the season is there's a time loop. Juan realized that he has lived all of this before, which means a time loop is involved. Throughout the season, we see Juan have strange visions. At first, we think it's PTSD from the Malvinas War. They mention several times throughout the series that Juan and other characters had fought in the Malvinas War, known to the UK as the Falklands War, a real conflict that happened in 1982 between Argentina and Britain over the Malvina Islands, aka the Falkland Islands. That historical trauma runs deep for Argentinians and parallels the current alien invasion threatening their sovereignty. The visions weren't just visions of the past though. It was also visions of events that had not happened yet. The final few scenes before the season ends were often the visions that Juan had been having throughout the season. It also seems to be triggered by the hand being introduced. I think Juan will be infected by the hand, which will create this time loop. This is very similar to the movie Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. In that movie, Tom Cruise is stuck in a time loop going through an alien invasion over and over and over again until he finally stops the invasion. I think it's the same thing happening with Juan, who isn't just remembering his past, he's also reliving it. What's interesting though is he doesn't remember going through any of this while his actual past as well as his future, which is also his past, are all blurring together. The visions cause him to black out every time he has a close incident with the alien invasion, whether it's the snow, the bugs, or the hand itself. What I think is going to happen is that Juan is going to end up going face to face with the hand. He's the most curious and proactive of the group. He was the first person who actually wanted to investigate the lights, and he seems to be tied to the alien force in a way that no one else is. I mean, he is the Eternaut after all. The invasion also isn't just happening in Argentina. We learned that Uruguay as well as Brazil are also being attacked. The snow is falling everywhere and the Earth's magnetic poles are being flipped, which explains why compasses are going haywire and why the sky looks so strange in the first episode. Maybe it might be the aliens already succeeded once and Juan's only hope was to go back in time and try to stop this again. I know the show is based off a graphic novel, but I didn't look it up or read it before making this video because I didn't want to spoil any of these twists for myself. Now, let's talk about the hand. What was that thing? The true invader was finally revealed, and it's a weird alien hand that looks like it's in charge of all the aliens invading. I did notice that the hands were more human in design than alien, even though they had multiple fingers, but those are more human appendages, which is probably why the aliens chose the planet Earth to invade. Because once they invert the poles and terraform the planet with coldness, they could land. We didn't see the hand until after the snow stopped falling, which is also when the mind control humans went on the offensive, while the bugs started taking a backseat to the controlled humans. It makes me wonder if the hand is some sort of hive mind entity that controls the humans as well as the bugs as one collective hive mind. The hand could be like the alpha assigned to this area, while other areas have other hand-like aliens, which is all part of the invasion plan. I do think it's important to note that even though they control time, and despite all their biological warfare, snow, bugs, and mind control, these aliens can be hurt. Juan was able to kill one of the beetles with a headshot. The bugs aren't invincible. The vulnerability might also apply to the hand as well, which could explain why the bugs built fortifications around downtown Buenos Aires. It's protecting something. There's a lot that can go down in season 2 for the Eternaut because there's a lot of unanswered questions by the end of the season. For example, what happened to Ingrid and Pablo? I think both of them survived because we never see them die. Inga was last seen in the cockpit when the plane was surrounded, and she could have easily hidden. Pablo and his squad may have escaped back to base, but more importantly, Juan may start using his visions, his quote-unquote future memories as tools and weapons. If he can learn to control them, he could finally start fighting back strategically. Juan seems to have done this before. That's how he knew the headshot would work. The problem is Juan's biggest motivation and his biggest weakness will be his daughter. Breaking the alien control over her could be very difficult because I think the hand knows that Juan is after him, and that's why it's using Juan's daughter to get closer to him. But guys, that's just my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this in the comment section below, and if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, peace.